Hello, good evening once again. Thank you very much for staying with TV3. This is your election command center. And what we are about to do now is to just help you understand and make sense of the two big rallies that have rocked the capital, Accra. Yesterday, the NPP closed its campaign, and this evening, the National Democratic Congress did so. They have both closed the campaigns officially because constitutionally there is not supposed to be any major political activity 24 hours to the voting. So if you watched TV3 at News 360, we crossed over to the Accra Sports Stadium where President Mahama addressed a mammoth rally of NDC supporters and told them why they should give the mandate to him, indirectly talking to the entire country and all Ghanaians who will be going to the polls on Wednesday. Yesterday, the New Patriotic Party's flag bearer, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, was also at the Trade Fair Center and spoke to a massive gathering of NPP supporters. So the two parties think that they have done all they can. Now the power is in the hands of the Ghanaian, and they are going to be casting their ballots on the 7th of December, which is just 2 days away. We have in studio Dr. Bosman Asare. He is a political science lecturer at the University of Ghana Political Science Department. And we're just going to be putting the whole campaign into perspective. And then we'll try and find out if messages have gone down well with the voter, and then also what could the decisions be on that day when you go out to the polls. My name is Martin Esedodate. This is your Election Command Center. Let's welcome the guest, and then we'll get straight into the discussion. Doc, good afternoon and good evening, and thank you very much for joining us in studio.
Good evening, and I'm also glad to be part of this.
Yes, it has been a politically heavy 2 days, especially in the Greater Accra region. Before we go to the very nitty-gritties of yesterday's rally and today's, what have you made, or what can you tell us about the campaigns in general from beginning of the year right up until today?
I think objectively, many Ghanaians and I will admit that the campaigns have been so far very, very impressive. And even moving beyond impressive, I think I will also say that we've seen a lot of issues being discussed. And I think although in the past we were talking about issues, etc., this particular election, people want to hear what are you going to do? How are you different from the other political party? And we've noticed that almost all the parties are talking even in ideological terms. And when you hear the NPP talking, they want to say why they are different from the NDC. And when you hear the NDC also talking, you hear them saying why they are different from the NPP. And I think that it's a clear indication that our democracy is growing, the democracy is maturing. And I believe that very soon many Ghanaians will begin to identify the political parties with certain core ideologies.
It is interesting. If you listen to, your earlier submissions focused on the fact that the words of the campaigns this year seem to have been on issues. Yeah. In previous elections, 2008, 2012, invectives, insults seem to have dominated. But this time around, like you mentioned, our democracy is growing. But do you think that those issues are what matter to the electorate?
I think the issues the parties have been championing, when you look at it, most of them appear to be the same issues, but the parties are looking at them from different angles. And when you look at what we call the party manifesto or the party platform, this document basically looks at, it tries to identify the problems in the society, and beyond that, what are the solutions? And when you look at the two main parties especially, you realize that most of them did the research. They looked at the Ghanaian society, they asked several questions, and they realized that there are certain things that are very dear to the heart of the Ghanaian people. So let's make sure that we put those issues across. Issues about job creation, about quality healthcare, access to quality education. These are issues that are very, very central, even disability issues. So when you look at the manifestos of the various parties, you realize that because they asked several questions, they were able to put these things together.
But what does that say about the Ghanaian voter? Has the Ghanaian voter also matured to look away from issues of personality and tribe to more realistic issues of national concern?
And I think that's what this election is going to test. Because we've been hearing, for those of us who have been monitoring the campaigns, we've been hearing, when you go to this region, they seem to like this particular thing by this particular political party. But until December 7th and maybe 6 hours, etc., after the polls, we won't have a fair idea whether the issue-based voting has reflected. But let's be very clear. For voters, it's going to take some time because we live in a society where ethnicity, regionalism, religion, these issues are very, very dominant in the life of the Ghanaian. So it will take some time, but I think that the parties have set the tone. And moving on, if you are a political party, you want to be taken very serious, you want to come up with certain policy interventions that will be able to address the problems that people are facing.
Okay, let's now shift focus to the NDC's campaign, which ended a few minutes ago. The president was quite categorical. He said that Ghanaians have two choices to make: a choice of record that is very visible for everyone to see, and the choice between that and verbal assurances that is being given by another party. Those were part of the issues that he mentioned. Also, he said that I place my destiny in the hands of the Ghanaian people and in the hands of God. Ghanaians should be the judge. And closed it by saying that in the name of the Almighty God, I wish to claim the election victory for John Mahama and the NDC. Those are just a few of the key points the president, in his closing comments made. What do you make of it? You think that's a very charging closing comment of a campaign well fought?
No, I think that when you look at the overall campaign, the NDC has been very, very impressive, crisscrossing the country since accounting to the people tour. And when you look at the closing statements, some of the statements you just mentioned, I know the Ghanaian people are going to be the judges in this particular election. Right. But one thing which is very, very important, which political commentators, analysts must be looking at, has to do with the fact that we know since we began this democracy, parties have always been getting 8 years, the NDC, the MPP, the NDC. And we know this is the 8th year for the NDC. But the different dynamic in this election is that this time the NDC is presenting a candidate who is also the president of the Republic. We know when individuals, people have voted for you for 2 terms as a party, there is this fatigue on their side. They want to see something different. But when you look at the arguments of this president, he's been talking about infrastructure, expansion, national health insurance, many things have been done. And as he rightly pointed out, the Ghanaian people are going to be the judges. And one of the key things we must also admit is that there have been several challenges in the country. For most of us, the places we work, we can see some of these challenges at play. And we know because of the IMF program. And normally, any government that submits yourself to an IMF program, literally what it means is that you have mismanaged the economy. So you are going to the IMF for some advice on how to bring the thing back. And during the period of this IMF, we've noticed that Ghanaians have gone through a lot of challenges. Right. Public sector employment, not even, we know many nurses have completed and they are not getting places. And all. But beyond this, we also see some signs that things are beginning to pick up. But the question to the Ghanaian people, simple: are they ready for the same administration to continue with the transformation? Or going by tradition, they want a new group of people to be in charge? All right.
We will be coming back to look at what the president, some key things the president also mentioned. One of it is that he's going to be open to all and bring opportunity to all Ghanaians, irrespective of your political, religious, and ethnic affiliations. So saying that he's going to be president for all. Nana Akufo-Addo of the New Patriotic Party also wrapped up his campaign and said a number of things. We had Nana Akufo-Addo touching on quite a number of things. Before he spoke, though, former President John Agyekum Kufuor also spoke. And before that, we were analyzing the NDC's campaign, which also ended a few minutes ago at the Accra Sports Stadium. President Mahama was there to close it up, mammoth rally for both parties. And so what we're going to be doing here is to weigh the issues that have come up in the last few hours of electioneering in the country. And Dr. Bosman Asare, who is the head of the Political Science Department at the University of Ghana, is still with us, and we're going to go straight into the discussions. Doc, Nana Akufo-Addo and the NPP seem to have campaigned with the message of job creation. Does that mean that is the loophole they seek to fill? I mean, there are other issues they mentioned, but it seemed to have been the key pointer for the NPP. Is that what they think is lacking in the NDC?
No, I think that when you are being very, very analytical, very objective and very frank, employment is a big issue. Let me put it more specifically, unemployment. We've not been able to create a lot of jobs in our country. You know, there are two main issues. As a country, we don't produce a lot. And what we also produce is not, the sharing is also a problem. And when you look at with the IMF program, you know, there are certain conditions don't employ as far as the public sector is concerned. And we also know the problem we've had with electricity. So many private sector businesses, banks, etc., we've been hearing they've been laid off. Even GTP, for example, I think just last week or so, some workers were laid off. So when you take all this into consideration, you realize that unemployment has become a major issue. And I'm also familiar with studies that have been done by various organizations, and all of them have concluded that job creation, they think, is one of the key things that must be seriously considered.
But talking about the issue of the IMF conditionality that, you know, holds back government employment, then it means that if Ghanaians decide to give the mandate to the NPP, they would still have to just go by that conditionality of the IMF. And so creation of jobs or employment by the government sector is still going to be stifled, no?
No, initially we are still going to have that situation. But one of the key things we must understand is that although the IMF, the World Bank, these are purely economic organizations, they are also very, very political. So they understand that when you have won the mandate of your people, they need to make sure that at least because you campaign on certain issues, what are some of the things they can do with you so that some of your things can be implemented. But if it's the same old government, then the tradition continues. Okay. But if it's a new regime, they are very flexible.
The vice presidential candidate of the NDC, that is Mr. Arthur, when he mounted the podium today, took a swipe at the NPP in general, and then also the fact that former President Kufuor did not seem to have the key people that helped him when he was in power. They didn't see those people around President Kufuor anywhere on the campaign platforms, and then even on that final day. Is that something you think is a real problem for the NPP? And do the NPP have the people to do the job?
No, to be frank with you, I think the NPP, they have the people. We know we've been hearing of people like Mr. Jakon, someone like Mr. Alan Chramati, who has been very effective on the campaign trail. And let's also be very clear that when you are in opposition as a political party, you can have certain internal wranglings, etc. Some people may not be coming on board. But I believe that once you're able to win power, these people are there. And let's be very frank, it's exciting to get the chance to serve your country in a certain capacity as a minister, as a member of a state board member, etc. And these things are very, very important. So I think that once they win, people are there and they are ready to support. Just like the NDC, didn't we hear someone like Mr. Spiogabra will never get a chance to be in government? But when they got to a time and the president realized that no, the way things are going, hands like that must be on board, right. A hand was extended to him.
So at least both parties clearly have the men and women to do the job.
I think they do, but one of the key things, which I don't know if our time will permit, is that politicians in our country must understand that when it comes to elections, anyone at all can win election when we look at the various constituencies. But when it comes to appointing people, make sure you appoint people. Ghana is a country we are saddled with underdevelopment. So we don't want just anyone at all to become a minister. We want people who have a proven track record. They have the experience to get things done. We don't want the job of minister to be like something that can go to anybody.
That dovetails into my next question, which would have to do with the President John Dramani Mahama's comment when he mentioned that he is going to be president for all and create equal opportunity for people of various political parties, ethnic groups, and also religion. Would you admit that the NDC has not been politically open to other key players of the various political parties in terms of appointments and getting them into government to help?
You know, let me say this. The problem we have in our country, I know in many countries like Canada, USA, Britain, if people in a particular state, they don't have anyone serving as minister or this, it's not an issue. Because going into political appointed office is not an avenue for you to enrich yourself. So serving as a minister, I know in US, in Canada, being the president of a university, vice chancellor, your salary is far, far more than someone serving as a minister. But we know in our country, we have institutionalized it that if you are serving as a minister, a board chairman of a government agency, etc., there are certain resources that come to you. So once people get to the point and they realize that people from their region, people from their ethnic groups are not part of the government, then it means that they are not getting certain things. But ideally, it shouldn't be an issue that you are from Western region and there is no one in Western region being a cabinet. The point is that opportunities have been created. So you don't need a minister for you to be able to work. Right. But in our situation, because of that, you want to make sure that you are appointing ministers from all the various regions. And I think the Constitution even talks about that. And when you move beyond that, we also have a situation whereby the nature of our politics, this majoritarian democracy, it ensures that this winner takes all. Some people are in charge. And let's be very frank with this. Once you have won election by 50.7 or so, you are in charge of everything. And your people will not even want to see that you are appointing people who did not support the campaign. So I think that we should expand opportunities.
That is one issue that should change. Okay, finally, your highs and your lows of the campaigns.
Now, in terms of my highs, I think I would say that I was watching the NPP campaign, the one they did in the Borg, I think Upper East, and I was looking at the NPP flag bearer, and I was like, this man at his age, and you look at the speech the man was giving, so you could see right from the word go that the man is doing better than what he did even in 2012. And when you look at someone like President Mahama, you look at the busy schedule as president. You must attend to some foreign principles, you have some local principles, etc. And when you also look at it from the angle that this is a president who is ready for re-election, and no president has lost election in Ghana. We've not had any president losing. So you look at the sense of urgency on the part of the president, and you can see that everywhere he goes, he's trying to be very clear that I'm the one you can trust. I'm the one you can trust. So look at it from that. And I think this election is going to be very, very interesting, because the campaigns of the two main parties have been very, very effective, very, very comprehensive.
And your low point would be?
No, in terms of low point, you know, we got to a point where it's like tribal issues were at play. And, you know, as a country developing, you don't want that to be part of your politics. But once that happens, you are creating some internal divisions. Although I acknowledge that all politics is local. We look at the local issues, what can we do to address, but politicians must be very careful when it comes to playing the ethnic card.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for your thoughts. Certainly, you will be part of the key personalities we'll be using here at the Election Command Center. Dr. Bosman Asare is where the elections will be covered comprehensively. The team is ready. The house is poised. You don't want to change your dial from TV3 this election season. My name is Martin Eskedudati. Stay with us. This is TV3. Have a good evening.